When I was 7 months pregnant, Jonathan took apart my cotton-padded jacket to make insoles for Chiang Mai. In my previous life, I sold my century-old martial arts school to help Jonathan's scholarly family look decent. He still thought my martial arts training was crude and disliked the calluses on my fingertips. In the cold winter, heavily pregnant, I watched as he tore apart my only warm jacket to sew insoles for Ellie. "Your martial arts training made you thick-skinned. You won't freeze to death," he said. When I had postpartum hemorrhage, he stewed the life-saving ginseng my mother left for me and gave it to his mistress. A martial arts woman is not worthy of such good things. The cruelest thing was when he sold our daughter to human traffickers just to save money for his elopement with Ellie. When Ellie's husband came after him, he hid behind me and threatened, "Stop him, or you'll never see your daughter again." I blocked 20 iron rods for him, and my right leg was shattered. Yet I never found my daughter, even until the day I died. Before he died, he appeared on TV holding Ellie as they received the National Top 10 Principals Award. Their son's school bag still dangled my daughter's longevity lock. I died in despair. But when I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the year when the martial arts school still stood. In this life, so, what if I'm a martial arts woman? I will protect my daughter and help her carve her own path. "Red Plum, go build a scaffold and chop down these trees," Jonathan ordered, pointing at the towering trees in front of Ellie's house. Ellie wanted to practice calligraphy there, but the trees blocked the light. I touched my 7-month pregnant belly and realized I was reborn. The man in front of me, barking orders, was my husband, and the woman in white sitting beside him smiling gently was his childhood sweetheart, Ellie. I remembered this scene from my previous life so clearly. It was today that I bled heavily after chopping down the trees. Jonathan refused to take me to the hospital. He only asked Ma Pa, who conducted funeral rites next door, to deliver the baby. As I bled profusely, he grabbed the last bottle of hemostatic medicine from the martial arts hall and said, "This medicine is precious. Ellie's heart always hurts, leave it for her." The blood wouldn't stop. Ma Pa panicked, but Jonathan stayed calm. "You decide. If she can give birth, she can. If she dies, that's her fate." Now, I understand Jonathan was never a husband preparing for childbirth. He was the undertaker preparing for my death. But I was lucky my body was strong, and I survived. "Jessica, are you deaf?" Jonathan's impatient words snapped me back to reality. "Ellie was kind enough to entertain you, and you won't even help? Chop the tree stump, cut it into firewood, and carry it to the kitchen so Ellie doesn't have to do it." Ellie coughed delicately. "Brother Jonathan, don't be too harsh. Sister Jessica is pregnant. She's a martial artist," Jonathan scoffed. "How can she be so delicate?" He shoved me, but I shook off his hand violently. Jonathan staggered back, stunned. "What are you going crazy about?" he demanded. I trembled with rage. "Jonathan, you weak chicken. If you've got the guts, make your own damn insoles. Have you no shame making your 8-month pregnant wife work for your broken shoes?" The room fell silent. Neither of them expected me, who had always endured everything, to explode. What nonsense are you spouting?" Jonathan stammered. "Ellie is just my classmate, nothing more." I sneered and grabbed Ellie's wrist, rolling up her sleeve to reveal the white lotus tattoo. "Last year on Chinese Valentine's Day, you two got burned sneaking around in the alley behind Chenghuang Temple. Am I wrong?" Their expressions turned ugly. Ellie went pale. Jonathan, enraged, tore off his gentleman facade and raised his hand to slap me. I caught his wrist and twisted it. He howled like a slaughtered pig. His weak scholar's body was no match for the martial arts I had practiced since childhood. I left that disgusting courtyard and walked straight to the dusty martial arts hall. I touched the wooden stakes my father had trained me with and remembered what he once told me. "Jessica, martial arts are our roots." In my previous life, I didn't understand what he meant. I was obsessed with Jonathan, a poor scholar who rose to principal only with my family's support. Later, he said the martial arts hall was vulgar and shamed the dignity of his family. I shut down our century-old school. He also claimed the senior disciples were a bad influence, so I cut ties with them all. I didn't realize I had severed the root of my life with my own hands. This life, I will not be foolish again. After leaving the martial arts hall, I contacted my senior brother and we agreed to reopen the gym no later than 2 months after I give birth. When I returned, Jonathan was already home, with Ellie trailing behind. She smiled sweetly. Sister Jessica, don't get the wrong idea. Brother Jonathan and I are just childhood classmates. Jonathan snorted. Why bother explaining to her? Vulgar minds are always dirty. I ignored them and went inside. Ellie followed, carrying a tape recorder and a hypocritical smile. Sister Jessica, you should start prenatal education this month. Jonathan added coldly. She's a wild woman, what does she know about that? Ellie smiled gently. I recorded a nursery rhyme specially for the baby. She pressed play. Her soft, flirtatious voice filled the room. Little baby, grow up obediently. Mommy loves you. Jonathan looked at her with admiration. Hear that?
So gentle, so elegant.
Unlike you, always punching and kicking. A body full of brute force. Don't teach my son to be vulgar. Go light the coal stove, don't let Ellie get cold. I stared at him in disbelief. He knew very well I had severe morning sickness and couldn't stand the stuffy air. All winter, I'd endured the cold without lighting the stove. When I didn't move, perhaps still shaken by my outburst yesterday, he reluctantly went to light it himself, muttering, The coal smell helps morning sickness. The more you smell it, the less you'll throw up. The moment the coal stove started, I immediately felt nauseous and suddenly bent over and retched. Ellie jumped far away when she saw it. Jonathan quickly handed me a handkerchief, frowned, and said in disgust, It's so dirty. Go to the kitchen to vomit. Ellie can't stand the peculiar smell. I vomited so much in the kitchen that even bile came out, and the man didn't come in to care about me for a moment. I covered my mouth with the handkerchief, and my heart sank again and again. Late at night, a sharp pain came over me, and my water broke. I gritted my teeth and called Jonathan, but the room was empty. Cold sweat soaked the sheets. I took out the pager my senior brother had given me yesterday, telling me to contact him if anything urgent happened. When I was about to faint, my senior brother kicked open the door. Seeing his anxious eyes, I remembered that he was also worried when I gave birth in my previous life. But at that time, my mind was all on Jonathan. We rushed all the way to the hospital. The nurse pushed me and ran. Relatives of Jessica, where is Jonathan? Strange, he clearly came to register just now. My heart trembled. Could it be that he saw I wasn't at home and knew I was about to give birth, so he ran to the hospital? At this time, another nurse lowered her voice. I saw that he was accompanying another woman to the obstetrics and gynecology department. She turned around and left again. Shh, don't talk nonsense. The other person's wife is giving birth in there. I lay on the cold hospital bed, my heart chilled to the bone. The severe pain tore through my body, and I screamed hysterically as if trying to release all the resentment of 2 lifetimes. It wasn't until I heard my daughter crying that I finally felt relieved. My consciousness gradually blurred, and it felt like I was dreaming a nightmare of my hellish past life. Before my father died, he told me earnestly that Jonathan was not someone I could trust, but I didn't believe him. I even sold our martial arts school so Jonathan could further his studies. After that, he was promoted all the way to principal, and his true nature began to show. At first, he merely disdained me. The school leaders laughed at him for marrying a she-devil. Later, Ellie's appearance gave him the courage to trample on me. I saw with my own eyes how he knelt down to put on Ellie's leather shoes, and her white, tender feet stepped on his right hand, the same hand that once copied poems for me. He had taught me to write, sentence by sentence, and the words, I wish we could be lovebirds in the sky, became their flirting lines in the next room. I endured again and again, but Jonathan grew increasingly shameless and cruel. To save money to elope with Ellie, he sold my daughter to human traffickers. I desperately begged him to tell me her whereabouts. He agreed, but only if I sent Ellie's husband away first. I saw the man holding a shovel, followed by a group of ruffians. That was the first time I broke my family's precepts and fought with others, but I was outnumbered. I blocked 20 iron bars for him, and my right leg was shattered into pieces. After waking up, Jonathan and Ellie had disappeared without a trace, and I never found my daughter again despite searching for her my whole life. Years later, I lay in a smelly rental house with my disabled body. I saw on TV that Jonathan and Ellie were honored as one of the top 10 principals in the country. Hanging from their son's school bag was the longevity lock my daughter had worn when she was 1 month old. The rings of the lock echoed in my ears like my daughter's last cry. "Mom, save me." I died in despair. When I woke up again, I was weak and lying on the hospital bed, holding my sleeping daughter. In this life, I will protect her and let her grow up safely. The ward door opened. Jonathan came in late, still holding Ellie's coat. My eyes were fixed on Ellie behind him. The safety lock hanging from her neck was the one I had begged for by climbing a mountain, kowtowing all the way. My knees had bled just to keep my child safe. "That's mine, give it back to me." Ignoring the torn wound, I sat up in bed, grabbed Ellie's neck, and pulled off the safety lock. She screamed and hid behind Jonathan. He pushed me away, frowned, and said, "Crazy woman, you're throwing a tantrum right after giving birth. Ellie is weak. What's wrong with her wearing it? You gave birth to a money-losing thing. What's the point of having a safety lock?" After saying that, Jonathan chased after the frightened Ellie out the door. His voice coaxing her came from the corridor, completely different from the fierceness he had just shown me. A while later, the man returned to the ward and said, "My unit sent me to the countryside for an inspection. You take good care of the child." He left without even glancing at his daughter. Thinking back to what the nurse said yesterday, was he really going to the countryside? I didn't want to care anymore. I just let him go. When my eldest senior brother came in with a lunchbox, I was staring blankly at the safety lock. I asked about preparations for the martial arts school. He said, "Everything is ready. Just waiting for you to leave confinement." That's good. Just endure another 30 days, and I'll be free. After that, there was no news from Jonathan until a few days before the child's full-month banquet. He came back. As soon as he entered the door, he showed no concern and said, "Move the full-month banquet to a later time. That day is Ellie's father's 60th birthday. I have to go." I sneered. "Go to hell. I'll do mine." He slammed the table. "You insist on going against me and making a fool of yourself." Diana, in my arms, suddenly burst into tears. I touched her burning forehead. She had a fever. I called Jonathan anxiously, but he kept flipping through the invitations, muttering, "How should the seating for the birthday party be arranged?" As if he were the head of that family. I hadn't finished my confinement yet, so I couldn't run around. I could only call him with a hoarse voice, "Diana has a fever. Give the child some water." He didn't even look up. "I'm busy," and kept muttering, "No postponement. From today on, I won't eat or drink either, so that outsiders can see how you, a vulgar woman, forced my husband and child to death." My child's illness disturbed me, and I finally compromised through gritted teeth. "Okay, the child's full-month party will be postponed." Only then did he stand up with satisfaction, without even looking at Diana, who had a fever, and without looking back, went to find Ellie to announce the good news. On the day of the birthday party, Jonathan, with a flushed face, held out a brocade box and handed it over like offering a treasure. "Uncle, this is a gift brush specially prepared for you, which symbolizes a long and blessed life." The guests in the audience praised him for his thoughtfulness, but I was the only one staring at the brush. It was made of my daughter's hair. I remembered the day I woke up and saw my daughter's hair was full of bumps and blood on her scalp. I rushed forward and snatched it away. "Jonathan, you are using my daughter's hair to do me a favor?" He frowned and lowered his voice. "Don't make a fuss. Ellie's father likes writing. This is an elegant thing." The other guests also talked at once. "It's just a pen. Is it necessary to be so stingy?" I held my daughter and didn't want to make a scene at the banquet. I endured my temper again and again. As a result, after the banquet, Jonathan was drunk and insisted on holding Diana to amuse himself. "Come, call Daddy." He tossed the baby, who had just turned 1 month old, up, but his hand slipped when he caught it. Bang! The baby's forehead hit the corner of the table heavily, and it instantly swelled into a bag as big as an egg. She cried heartbreakingly, and I rushed over like crazy, but Jonathan said disdainfully, "Why are you crying? Children of a martial arts family are not so pretentious." Without saying a word, I kicked Jonathan aside, rushed back home with the child in my arms, looking for the ancestral medicine for traumatic injuries, but found that the medicine cabinet was empty. "Where's the medicine?" I asked Jonathan, who was following behind me with red eyes. He picked his teeth nonchalantly. "Oh, that ointment smells too strong. I sold it and exchanged it for some vanishing cream. You can use it. If you don't want it, give it to Ellie." I stared at the boxes of exquisite porcelain bottles on the dressing table. They were clearly Ellie's favorites. I kicked over the dressing table, and the porcelain bottles broke into pieces. "You sold my ancestral medicine just to buy rouge for that." Jonathan stood up suddenly and was about to slap me, but I pushed him back. He fell heavily to the ground and cursed. "Shrew, you have the nerve to make trouble when you can't give birth to a son. Who knows if this girl is the bastard born by you and the senior brother in the martial arts hall?" As soon as he finished speaking, he heard a round of boos. They were the villagers and neighbors who came to watch the show. The senior brother was also there and hurried to explain, "Don't spread rumors and slander. Jessica and I are innocent." Jonathan sneered. "Then why did you rush to send my wife to the hospital when she gave birth? What kind of dirty things did you do by sneaking into the closed martial arts hall every day?" Jonathan's questioning shocked the villagers again. I didn't expect this martial arts girl to be a no-wonder teacher. Jonathan doesn't care about his daughter. There is a reason for that. These gossips angered my senior brother. He clenched his fists and wanted to attack me, but I stopped him.
Pa.
I slapped the man twice. "Jonathan, didn't the sages teach you the word shame in the books?" Then he took out a hospital abortion slip from the drawer. "The one in Ellie's belly is your real bastard." When I gave birth in the hospital that day, the nurse's words made me suspicious. After a careful check, it was true. Ellie was pregnant with Jonathan's bastard, but she had a miscarriage. So, he didn't go to the countryside during this period of time. It was clearly to take care of Ellie, who had a miscarriage. In the previous life, it was probably at this time that she had a miscarriage. So Jonathan took the hemostatic medicine in the martial arts hall and the 100-year-old ginseng left by his mother to serve Ellie. After the heavy bleeding, I was weak and had no milk. I could only drink rice soup with Diana, and I could see my shadow in it. Suddenly, a breath of turbid air floated in my heart. The villagers started to point fingers at Jonathan and Ellie again. Jonathan saw this and dismissed the crowd of onlookers. They were anxious to come over to explain to me. I was in a hurry to apply medicine to the crying Diana, so I took a stick and drove the couple away. When turning around, they left the last sentence. "We will divorce tomorrow. If you dare to play tricks, I will print all your dirty deeds into flyers and post them all over the school bulletin board." Hearing this threat, Jonathan was furious. Jonathan took Ellie and left in disgrace. The next day, he really came to my house with the divorce documents, with a hypocritical gentleness on his face. "Jessica, we were husband and wife, so we should part ways in peace. Since you love your daughter so much, she won't fight with you, but you have to transfer the martial arts school to me." I sneered at the document he drafted. "Why?" He said in a condescending tone. "How much can this broken martial arts school be worth? I'm doing this for your own good. Now the policy has changed. This kind of feudal dregs will be banned sooner or later." I suddenly remembered that in my previous life, after he forced me to close the martial arts school, he turned around and secretly opened a teaching class in the martial arts school and made a lot of money. But he was still not satisfied with this, and he wanted to sell my daughter to make another fortune. Thinking of this, my blood coagulated, and I slowly moved my wrists. "You want a martial arts school? Okay, beat me first and we'll talk." Jonathan's face changed, and he took 2 steps back. "You don't mess around." I threw him to the ground with an over-the-shoulder throw and pressed his throat. "Back then, when you begged my father to take you in like a dog, why didn't you say that this was rubbish? Listen, Jonathan, both my daughter and the martial arts school are mine. Don't even think about it. Just come with me to divorce." The man was still struggling and shouting, "I'm going to the Women's Federation to sue you." I sneered. "Remember Director Wong from the textile factory? You helped Ellie forge the accounting certificate, and he was worried about having no evidence." At this time, Ellie rushed in. "Brother Jonathan, there is a job transfer in the factory." I sneered. "Oh, Are you here to urge your lover to arrange a job for you? Ellie, the archives section of the textile factory has failed the assessment for 3 consecutive years. If you don't get transferred, you'll be laid off, right? You think he is capable and rich. I sneered. The money for his schooling was paid by my family, and his diploma was not enough to enter the shule. It was my dad who asked the then principal for help in getting him in. You expect him to give you a stable job. Ellie turned pale and pointed at Jonathan and said, "Didn't you say you could find me a stable job? You liar." Then Ellie ran out crying again. Jonathan hurriedly got up and tried to chase him, but I forced him to go to the Civil Affairs Bureau and sign the divorce papers. I thought this couple would break up, but who would have thought that when the martial arts hall was repainting the walls, they came again. Jonathan kicked the door open and said, "I'm here to get my stuff. I was painting the walls with Diana on my back and didn't even look up. Your junk is in the warehouse. Find it yourself." Ellie pinched her nose in disgust. I sneered, holding Diana in a sling with one hand, and with the other, I lifted a 100-pound sandbag and dragged it to the practice area. Sweat dripped onto the concrete floor. Jonathan didn't even look at her but turned around and said to Ellie, "Ellie, stand further away. Don't get your skirt dirty." After saying that, he took out several boxes of dusty books from the warehouse. "I'm going to take all of them away." I glanced at the 3-character classic and 1,000-character classic The Enlightenment books he once promised to teach his children with. Now he was taking them all, leaving none behind. He even habitually ordered me, "Come and help me move them." I weighed the sandbag and sneered, "Move it yourself." Jonathan's face turned ugly. As soon as he tried to move the box, he sprained his waist.
Ouch.
The neighbors had already gathered at the door to watch. Aunt Zhang, who sold pork, shouted, "A grown man can't even move a box of books. He's not as good as a woman carrying a child." Jonathan was embarrassed and angry. "Jessica, you're just going to watch me like this?" I put down the sandbag and said to Ellie, "I don't mind a man with such poor waist strength in bed." Aunt Zhang also spat. "I wouldn't want this kind of boiled chicken of a man either." The onlookers laughed. Ellie was embarrassed and dragged Jonathan away. His face was ashen. He pointed at me and cursed, "Barbaric. Vulgar. No wonder you can't have a son." I picked up the red-tasseled spear leaning against the wall and stabbed it in front of his feet. "I'll say it again, next time I'll stab you. That'll be the 3rd one." Jonathan turned pale with fear, pulled Ellie, and almost tripped over the threshold. I shouted, "Everyone, bear witness. From now on, dogs can enter the martial arts hall, but this person is not allowed." The neighbors all applauded. After hearing this, Jonathan's face went white. He said, "Don't worry. I'll make sure your martial arts hall is shut down." On the day the martial arts hall opened, villagers crowded around the entrance to watch. I was about to cut the ribbon when suddenly, there was a crackling sound of firecrackers across the street. Ellie, wearing a brand new shirt and black pants, looked well-educated and well-mannered. She stood under the sign of Wenlin Tutorial School and shouted, "College entrance exam sprint class is open. Famous teachers will tutor you, personally guaranteed results." I secretly suspected that Jonathan was being this blatant because he was teaching publicly outside. I also heard neighbors talking about how it was a training class for employees' children cooperating with the school union. I sneered. The man who is now the Dean of Studies is quite capable. Adjusting his glasses, he deliberately raised his voice. "Now that the college entrance exam has been restored, studying is the right way. Fighting and killing will be phased out sooner or later." Seeing parents and children rushing over, I sneered, picked up a gong and banged it. "Listen, folks. Our martial arts school provides free teaching and 3 meals a day. Girls can practice martial arts after finishing cultural courses. With strong bodies, they won't be afraid of bullies and will have energy to work in the fields." The crowd immediately turned to us, and the atmosphere became lively. Jonathan's face turned green. But before dawn the next day, someone had splashed feces at the entrance of the martial arts school. I took my disciples to wash it away. When I turned around, I saw Ellie laughing from the opposite window. At lunch, a few second-rate guys came to the martial arts school. They didn't cause trouble. Instead, they asked to enroll. But they didn't practice kung fu, just ate several bowls of rice, and the meat was snatched up as soon as it was served. When I returned and saw this, I kicked over the table and said, "Comrades, we only accept girls here. Are any of you girls?" Hearing this, several strong men smashed the table and fought me. Before they could get into position, I knocked down 2 of them with a sweeping kick. The rest were also taken down by the senior brother. In the end, they had to crawl back across the street to the Wenlin cram school to ask for compensation. Jonathan was furious and pushed Ellie away, cursing, "You're an idiot who can't accomplish anything." I raised my eyebrows and smiled. Just then, Aunt Wong, who was cooking, came over and asked worriedly, "Jessica, how can our martial arts school sustain this kind of eating?" I lifted the straw curtain in the backyard and revealed 20 large vats. "Look, the apprentices take turns on duty. The pickled vegetables are more fragrant than those from the state-owned factories." Shopkeeper Lee from Front Street ordered 50 kilograms and gave us enough rice and flour for half a month. As I spoke, a representative of the female textile workers brought over a roll of cloth. The sisters pooled money to make uniforms for the kids. Most amazingly, during the autumn harvest, I led 30 female apprentices to help out. While most households could harvest 1 mu of land a day, my apprentices could do 3 in half a day. The village party's secretary smacked his lips and said, "This isn't a girl, it's Hua Mulan." Later, the leader of the County Education Bureau came to inspect the school. The director shook my hand and said, "Director Jessica, the chairman was right. Women can hold up half the sky." The city decided to promote our martial arts school as a key project and provide an 800 yuan monthly subsidy. Jonathan and Ellie stood across the street, faces twisted in rage. The 5 students he had left came to me the next day to help pickle vegetables. In the end, Ellie's interest class had to shut down. Surprisingly, the next day Jonathan brought an official document with a red stamp and deliberately came to the martial arts school to show off. "See this? A training notice from the Municipal Education Department. When I come back after graduation, I will be the principal of a key middle school." Ellie took his arm and said in a shrill voice, "When the time comes, my gifted class will open and charge 5 yuan per hour. Some free martial arts schools are just waiting to close. I am teaching the children how to do horse stance." Without even raising my head, I said, "Oh, congratulations in advance. After all, this will be the last time he hears congratulations in this life." Memories of past lives came flooding back. Jonathan always disliked my vulgarity, but he didn't know that in his previous life, he almost lost the qualification for further studies. I helped him get it back. I still remember that in the last life, it was winter and snowing heavily. I knelt at the door of Director Wong's house holding Diana, with a blood mark on my forehead. "Please give Jonathan a chance. He is really a good teacher." Director Wong looked at the child in my arms and sighed, "If it weren't for your father's kindness in suppressing bandits, I would definitely not give him this opportunity." So I sold the martial arts school my father left me and raised the funds for Jonathan's further studies. But little did I know that this further study was at public expense. Ellie also went with him. He used the money from my selling the martial arts school to spend his time drinking and partying in other places with Ellie, while I took the child to do hard labor for a living. The first thing I did after I came back was thinking that he just thinks my rough hands and feet are not worthy of an intellectual like him. Since he thinks he is noble, let him be. In this life, I will no longer have anything to do with him. I coldly watched Jonathan excitedly packing his luggage and passing by the door of my martial arts school. As expected, 3 days later, there was a sudden noise at the street corner. Jonathan rushed into the education building with a pale face. He roared, "Impossible! How could my quota be cancelled?" Suddenly, he turned his head and glared at me. "It's you who did it." I said slowly, "Didn't Director Wong tell you that further studies require political review of 3 generations and that your grandfather was a pseudo-chief of the police station?" Jonathan suddenly froze and smashed the sign of my martial arts school in anger. He turned around and was arrested by the Joint Defense Team as a hooligan. But my heart was already calm. I continued to recite Mulan Ci with the children. After a few days of education, Jonathan was released. Now, the cram school was reported for malicious charging and closed down. I guess he felt that his position in the school was about to be lost, so he shamelessly ran to me. The man knelt at the door of the martial arts school with a scruffy beard, holding a wrinkled letter of repentance in his hand. "Jessica, I was wrong. I was bewildered. Please forgive me this time. I leaned against the door frame and sneered. Teacher Jonathan, what are you doing? Didn't you say I was a vulgar person last time? The man actually squeezed out 2 tears. That was all instigated by Ellie. In fact, I miss you and the child very much. I raised my eyebrows. I miss us. At this time, the daughter was carried out of the house by Aunt Wong. When she saw Jonathan, she burst into tears immediately. Jonathan reached out to hug her. Diana kept shouting the words she had just learned. Beat, beat. Fate is really a good cycle. In the previous life, Jonathan only thought that Diana was noisy. When the child cried, he locked her in a dark room. In this life, Diana saw him and said directly, beat. Aunt Wong on the side also said, oh, even a baby knows who the bad guy is. Seeing this, Jonathan immediately moved to my side. Jessica, forgive me for the sake of the child. A girl also needs someone to teach her to read and recognize words. He was still begging. Looking at his appearance of a lost dog, there was no trace of him that I knew at the beginning. At that time, Jonathan would wipe off the mud on the soles of his shoes at the door when he came to the martial arts gym to find me, for fear of bringing in any dust. When my father was alive, he laughed at him for being like a poor scholar, so he would blush and bow. His embarrassment and seriousness softened my heart. In winter, when I sprained my foot, he would use his red frozen hands to rub medicinal wine for me. He would buy 2 things with his salary. One was the martial arts illustrations newly published by Xinhua Bookstore, and the other was the osmanthus cake from Aunt Zhang's house at the end of the alley. The book was to honor my father, and the snacks were for me. He was so poor that he had to eat steamed bread with boiled water at the unit. It was such a sincerity that made me willing to follow him. I didn't want to think about the past anymore. I looked at the girls who were leaving the martial arts gym after school. They were teasing Diana and teaching her to recite poems. I only said one sentence. Go away. The child now has someone to teach her to recognize words and recite poems. You don't have to copy my boxing manual for me. Jonathan looked at me and was stunned for a moment. This was his promise to my father at that time. That day the matchmaker came to propose marriage. My father slammed the 8 immortal table and said, this boy is so poor that the girl will suffer if she follows him. He stood in the yard with his back straight. I can't give Jessica a good life now, but I can teach her and the child to read and recite poems. When she practices martial arts, I will copy boxing manuals for her, but now I don't need all these. Seeing that I didn't argue or scold and said these words calmly, Jonathan also knew that there was no hope of reconciliation. But I didn't expect that this unfaithful man would sneak into Ellie's dormitory that night just after leaving my martial arts hall. When I was holding Diana and going home, I happened to see the entangled figures reflected on the window. With the memory of the previous life, I knew that Ellie's long-distance husband had returned. The reason why he didn't go home was that he went to drink with his brothers. I never thought that when I got home, I ran into this couple who were having an affair. Later, because I blocked them, the couple ran away. But in this life, I am not so lucky. I contacted the eldest brother and asked him to deliver a letter to Ellie's husband. Then, I squatted outside and started to watch the show. Not long after, I saw Ellie's husband coming back in a hurry. A few minutes later, Jonathan, who was half naked, was thrown onto the street. Lao Wang's angry curses echoed through half the street. You've screwed me over with A. The onlookers laughed, and then I suddenly realized that Ellie was married. This kept it a secret, isn't she? If it weren't for the memory of the previous life, I wouldn't have known. She looked innocent on the surface, but she couldn't stand the loneliness of a man who was away from home all year round, so she started to flirt with people everywhere, and she really hooked up with Jonathan. Jonathan was naked, covering his bruised eye sockets. When he saw me, his voice trembled. Jessica, you did it on purpose. I pretended to be surprised. Yeah, so you didn't know. Ellie's marriage certificate was under the pillow. I was too passionate, so I didn't see it. After that, I went back to the martial arts hall and looked at my daughter sleeping. I finally protected her safety in this life. The next day, I heard that Jonathan's right hand was broken by Lao Wang, completely destroying his proud hand that could write poems and prefaces. Old Wang said angrily, Don't you know how to write love letters to seduce other people's wives? Let's see how you can write again. Then, the school transferred Jonathan to the Northwest frontier to teach on the grounds of corrupt teacher ethics. On the day of leaving, his bandaged hands finally collapsed. Jessica, I don't want to go. Please save me. I asked the senior brother to kick him out directly. He must bear the consequences of his own sins. Later, I learned that Jonathan couldn't stand the hardship in the Northwest and wanted to escape. As a result, he was shot and killed by bandits on the road. Ellie was not spared either. She became pregnant again and was beaten by her husband to miscarriage. The doctor announced on the spot that she would never be able to have children again. After that, she went crazy, staring at other people's children like a demon and kept muttering, "My son, my son." Later, she snatched a baby on the street, was caught on the spot, sentenced to 10 years in prison, and finally died in prison. Thinking of the faces of her and Jonathan, who sold my daughter in the previous life, I finally believed that retribution has reincarnation. I hugged my daughter and was relieved. Many years later, I sat in front of the TV watching my daughter perform swordplay in a Hong Kong drama that amazed the screen. She held the Best Newcomer trophy and said, "Thank you, Mother, for teaching me that women should be self-reliant." The eldest senior brother walked in from the outer room and said, "You are amazing. You have worked hard, too." Then he handed me a cup of hot tea. His calloused hands held mine firmly and powerfully. I smiled and turned to look at the hundreds of girls doing horse stance on the playground, who were shouting in unison, "Women are not easy to bully." In a trance, I seemed to see myself in my previous life holding my daughter standing under a tree. In this life, we finally live the way we want.